Good morning and welcome to our very first ever Virtual Alumni Week. Thank you for joining us. I'm Shiira, President of Hawaii Baptist Academy and a graduate from the class of 1975. Due to COVID-19, HBA suspended all in-person alumni events throughout the summer. In order to stay connected, we have created a virtual program to help our alumni and friends be together no matter where you may be in the world. Even though we're not able to gather in person physically, we can still be together socially. We've worked hard to bring HBA into your home through various activities like Morning Live TV show, virtual campus tour hosted by our HBA Alumni Association, island-style cooking demo, and alumni leadership series where we will be featuring our alumni who are impacting our communities and transforming our world. Our Alumni Week will culminate with a backyard concert, Hawaiian style, that you can enjoy right in the comfort of your own home. Most importantly, we'll be celebrating our reunion classes, catch up with beloved faculty and former faculty members, and connect with alumni from across the nation to engage, reconnect, and reminisce with. Our theme today is leadership. We're excited to connect you with our alumni who are exemplifying servant leadership in various sectors of our community. Throughout the week, connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, or on our website at www.hba.net. We have a fun week planned for you, so sit back, relax, and enjoy HBA's first Virtual Alumni Week.
Good morning and welcome to Hawaii Baptist Academy's first ever Virtual Alumni Week. As we are all experiencing this unprecedented time of social distancing due to COVID-19, we pivoted from celebrating in person to going virtual. Although this is no replacement for seeing everyone face to face, it does provide a wonderful opportunity to showcase our alumni and our school with alumni around the world. Thank you for tuning in to our Monday edition of HBA Live. My name is Billy Leader, Director of Institutional Advancement and proud alumna of the class of 1994. Each day we'll be giving away a fabulous prize, so be sure to tune in for the day and we'll be asking you a question related to the show from the day before. Today we'll be giving away alumni shirts to the first 10 people to email us at alumni@hba.net. That's alumni@hba.net. Let us know your name, graduation year, t-shirt size, mailing address, and what you've been up to lately. And we'll post the winners on our website at hba.net, alumni, under Alumni Week, and on our Instagram and Facebook accounts at HBA Alumni. Today, we'll be enjoying an island-style cooking demonstration by 1992 graduate Brian Nagai, Chef de Cuisine for Foodland Farms, and hear from distinguished alumni recipient Kurt Murao from the class of 1987 and Scott Sue, President of Hawaiian Electric Industries, for our first segment in our Alumni Leadership Series. Throughout the week, we'll be celebrating our reunion classes. We start by giving a shout out to the classes of 1975, 1985, and the class of 2015. We are so blessed to jumpstart this week with a two-time legacy honoree and beloved HBA history teacher who dedicated over 50 years of service to HBA, Miss Maureen King. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's get started. Okay. So tell us about your HBA story. What brought you here?
A job. I was about to graduate from Cal Baptist, had no idea what I was going to do, and a classmate stopped me in the hall and asked if I'd be interested in teaching at what was then called Hawaiian Baptist Academy. They were a little hard up for teachers that year. They hired me and I came and stayed for 52 years. Actually, the last 20 were part-time, so maybe they don't quite count. But I've never doubted for a day that I was where I was supposed to be.
So what have been some of the most memorable teaching moments?
One took place in the mid-'80s, and for some reason that year, I was drafted to teach a single section of 7th grade English. I have no training or experience in that, but like the doctors say, I resolved to do no harm. There were 3 naughty boys in there who were challenged, but there were 2 very bright kids. And I just wanted to stay out of their way. So I said, when we do the nitty-gritty grammar, you have a free pass to the library. You don't have to stay in class. But I want some creative writing every week, and I want a book report once a month, and Dickens would be nice. Well, they performed brilliantly. The boy, Titus Trong, began writing me mystery stories, The Adventures of Herlock Bones. This went on for weeks. Then I said, well, this is great, Titus, but maybe we should try another genre. How about news writing? No problem. He's tried that. I think he ended up on the newspaper and the yearbook before he was finished. He now makes movies, writes movies. The other brilliant child would write haiku by the page. And one day in class, she raised her hand with this troubled look on her face and said, Miss King, how do you get a poetic license? Well, I stifled myself and said, well, it's not quite like that, and tried to explain it. She had heard her mother use the term, and I think she was afraid that she was doing something wrong in writing poetry without a license. This is Valerie Stackel Coriel, who now has taught a great many of our 7th and 8th graders English. So that was one of my memorable moments.
That's wonderful. So you've stayed continually involved in HBA even after retirement, and so some of those things have been mock trial. Can you talk to us a little bit about coaching the mock trial team?
I'm not exactly a coach because I'm not a lawyer. I'm more the grandmother. I'm just here. But I've been doing it for over 15 years, and it's been a horse that I couldn't get off of. But I have seen wonderful results from mock trial. We don't really pay too much attention to wins and losses and championships, but we look at the kids who come in so shy and blossom and learn to think and speak on their feet. And as one parent said, she always loved to argue, but now she wins. We're not trying to produce lawyers. In fact, I think we have cured many of them from becoming lawyers, but some have gone into that field.
That's great. So many people see you as a leader here at HBA. How would you describe your leadership style and that and the philosophy behind leadership?
I read a book one time about Abraham Lincoln and the Emancipation Proclamation. He kept that proclamation in his drawer for many months before he ever issued it. And what I learned was that you can lead only if there are people in front of you demanding that you do a certain thing. And so that's influenced how I teach. I guess my teaching style is telling stories and eliciting questions. If I can teach in response to a question, the kids are going to remember it much longer than if I just stood up there and said, all right, yeah, da, 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 da. And I'm especially grateful to those students who would ask so-called dumb questions. That is, the rest of the class snickered, but they were not too cool to ask. And I figured the rest of the class needed to know the answer too. And so those were often just exactly the questions, the rabbits I wanted let out that we could chase. So I think that's how I lead in teaching. Hope that they will pull and want to know what I have to say.
Well, you definitely are a memorable teacher. So many of alumni always talk about you, and you've taught many generations now.
Yes.
As well. So can you talk about that a little bit?
A term for those students, and I owe this to Helen Archprue, grand students. And in the last few years, I've always had some grand students in the class. And now that I'm a reading coach with the kindergarten, I have grand students down there. So that's fun. They want to know, oh, was my mom a good student? I don't remember, which is often true.
So what has been your hope or your prayer for the students here at HBA?
At one time, I would have given one of these answers, very obvious answers, for them to be a lifetime learner, for them to be happy, for them to be successful. And gradually, I realized I wanted them to change the world, but I wasn't sure I was making that clear enough. So for the last few years, I would begin the first day of class with something like this. I expect you to change the world. And when you are famous and important, I cannot correct your grammar or your facts, so I'm going to do it now. Please forgive me, but I want you to be well prepared when you go out there to change the world. And having said that, I hand out the schedule for the semester and we get on with the history.
That's wonderful. Do you have any last thoughts or anything you want to say to the alumni out there?
I'm grateful to so many of you for staying in touch with me, and I hope this alumni event this summer will get a whole lot more of you in touch with me. I have the honor to write the column Alumni Chronicles for the Soaring Eagle every few months, and I'm always looking for inspiring and interesting people to write about.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you, Ms. King, for being such an inspiration to so many of us. You've touched my life as my English teacher, my history teacher, and you pushed me even more in AP European history. I think that was the hardest and most challenging class I took here at HBA. But I had great discipline from it, and then I remember you had us over at your home and you cooked for us, and that meant the world to me. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're live? We're live. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Virtual Alumni Week. I'm so excited to have as our alumni spotlight our very own president of Hawaii Baptist Academy, Ron Shiira, from the class of 1975. And Ron, your class is celebrating your reunion year class.
Absolutely. This is our 45th year, I think.
Wow.
I shouldn't say that, but yeah, it's been a while. It's kind of neat that we're all on social media now and slowly getting traction for our 45th year.
That's great. And I think you folks are trying to plan a Zoom call for your reunion.
Yes, we have to figure out what Zoom is first and then try to get on a call. It's pretty exciting to see everyone wanting to talk and get together again.
That's great. Well, thank you for joining us this morning. Our theme today is on leadership. So how appropriate to speak with you, and especially during this time. HBA had to really pivot during COVID-19 from in-person school to going to online learning. So if you can briefly talk about some of the lessons learned as a leader, you yourself as a leader, through this uncharted territory.
Thanks, Billy. Before I do that, speaking of taking a pivot in leadership, I just want to congratulate you, Billy, and your team for working so hard on this week. No one else has done this before. I haven't heard of another school doing a virtual alumni week. And so I know it's a lot of work setting everybody up. So thank you so much for all the time and effort that you've put into this week. Our prayer is that everything goes great. I'm sure it will. Answering your question, the first thing I realized was that this situation might be new for HBA, whether it's a crisis or a pandemic, but the mission and purpose doesn't change. And And early on, that's why I realized the most that Hawaii Baptist Academy being a school, a missional school, one that reaches out to many students that might not believe the same God or the same Jesus that we believe. But we love them and we invite them to our school. And so early on, we realized that our mission and purpose doesn't change. Though this idea of mission and purpose allowed us to stay firm and to know who we are and allowed us to pivot in many different directions. It seemed that way over the first couple of weeks, just pivoting to the left and right, but realizing that HBA was the same no matter the way that we distributed education, whether in person or online, it was the same. The one thing that also stood out was our people. It's just so amazing that during times of uncertainty, all of our faculty and our staff, your department, people that took a look at, hey, this is uncomfortable, but yet everybody, it was all hands on deck. Everybody just didn't think about themselves. They thought about others. They put God first. It was really easy, I would say, leading our school at Hawaii Baptist Academy because everyone took a moment not to think about themselves, but to think about others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. That's good. So talk, I always admire you and being such a prayer warrior. Talk about how you led by faith, especially during this time.
Okay. Well, the first thing that came up, and that's a pretty serious question. The first thing that came to my mind was something, I think, a little humorous. Those that know me very well, my classmates that have been trying to get in touch social media wise, and I know you just heard Miss King, the faculty that led me, to think that God will allow me through His grace to be able to lead here at HBA. I always said that God had a sense of humor, right? Because I was probably not your most likely leader here at HBA. But early on, I think that God helped me realize that that because I knew that it was because of His grace, and that I probably didn't have the resume that others would think that, hey, this should be the president of HBA, that He would not allow me to say that it was me, that it was pretty obvious that it was God leading. Early on in my life, after I left HBA, my mission, I've been always a person of mission and purpose. My personal mission was to help others reach their full potential in Christ. I've taken that through my family life, my wife, my children, my grandson, and everybody that I work with. What can I do to help this person reach their full potential in Christ? And I think that took the focus off of me and onto others.
Great. So during this time, HBA responded in so many ways, not just internally with our own school environment and how we were servicing our families through online education, but also we saw a need out in the community due to COVID. And so can you talk about some of the programming and just some of the ways that HBA reached out to our community during this time?
Sure, thanks, Billy. As I mentioned before, it's really the one thing about HBA and all of our employees, really this idea of not on ourselves, but others. And quickly, we had two situations. We had a bunch of churches that continue to feed and serve our homeless community. We knew that was a need. At the same time, we had a need at HBA. We had a wonderful food service company called Flick International, and their chefs all of a sudden had no work. And I was faced with the responsibility of either laying them off as they're a part of a concession of ours, a vendor, and Flick could not carry them. And so either laying them off or keeping them on. And quickly came to mind was, hey, if we could keep them on and we could maybe loan them to other nonprofit agencies that had needs to feed the kupuna, our elderly people, are those that in need. Let's do that. The very next day, we got a call from Next Step Shelter, who is a homeless facility that some of our churches and HBA participates from time to time. And they said, hey, we got a need. We need to have people serve lunch to our homeless so that we could keep them off the street. And so, wow, that was God answering prayer. And so right away we said okay to that. And that turned out to allowing us serve over 8,000 lunches over 2 months to those that just really appreciated it. It kept them in the shelter, out of harm in the community. We thought that we would do this on our own. We asked for our churches to help contribute, and not only our churches contributed to us, but supporters of HBA, our families, all gave a little bit from each other. And we, Billy, did we raise over $28,000? And it went over our need. And so God again answered our need, just validated that this is what he wanted us to do. And then something else happened after that. And you came up with this idea of raising funds for those families in need that really wanted a Christian education but couldn't afford it. And so we started the Kokua Fund. And right after we met our goals for our community fundraising, we started Kokua Fundraising for our students. And already I've heard families that are so appreciative of maybe needing a little bit extra here and there so that you could come to HBA. And that's been a successful fundraising event as well.
Yeah, that's great. And then talk too, I mean, this is such a, especially for our youngest alum who just recently graduated, this was such an interesting time for them, and they've had to deal with a lot of adversity, but I think through that adversity, they've shown a lot of resilience as well. Can you talk a little bit about how HBA really honored our class of 2020 this year?
Oh, yes, that was, it was a trying time for everyone. Even to the last minute. Early on, our families, our parents, the school decided to, hey, maybe let's take a pause here. Let's take a wait and see if we can wait out maybe a month or two and see if the climate changes and that we could really honor our students, our graduates, our resilient class of 2020. And so we moved our graduation from May 30th, which by the way would have been the earliest graduation date for us in many years, and we moved it back to June 27th. Yeah, June 27th. We did have a July date, but we thought that some of our graduates would be going to college after that, and we wouldn't be able to see them. So glad to say that we had 109 of our graduates come and participate in a recent graduation. Everyone was able to walk on stage. We had a modified ceremony, commencement ceremony, and so we couldn't get the crowds of 2,000 or so people that we normally get, but we had it for the very first time, just like this week being our very first virtual alumni week. We had this class, the class of 2020, had the very first commencement ceremony on the beautiful, lush, new Uanu campus of Stan Sagert High School campus. And so we were so blessed by that. It was such a memorable moment for our families. We did physical distancing in the gymnasium because the city allowed spiritual ceremonies to happen, services to happen. It allowed us to get a little bit more people in there with physical distancing. And we had masks on and everything else. But we really enjoyed the time. And through the letters and emails that I received from parents already and our graduates, they're all blessed by it.
Oh, that's wonderful. Okay, so now that baccalaureate graduation is over, and I know summer school is already in full swing for us as well, but as we're preparing to open for the fall, can you talk about some of the priorities that HBA has for how we're reopening school? What can you share with our HBA community?
Yeah. When you mentioned that, Billy, I took a big sigh because work continues. As a matter of fact, today we released our reopening plan for our school. We've been working really hard on that and constantly communicating with our parents about what's happening. So good news is that HBA will open live on campus scheduled for August 3rd, making some changes, shifting grade levels on the first day and the third and fourth and fifth. But in short, there are three really priorities that we have in place. Obviously, all of these priorities help us to align with our mission and purpose, which is to honor God. We at HBA, we have expected school-wide learning results. And in our preamble, we say, because we believe that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, really the truth, that HBA continues to join God in the formation of people and the transformation of the world. And in doing that, we bring faith and learning together in such a way that allows us to do that. And so that hasn't changed. And so, but the three priorities that we have is to maintain excellent education, right? Academic education, regardless of the delivery, whether it's live in person or it's online or it's a hybrid. The second thing is that we want to do it safely, right? Everything that we're doing is to make sure that our students, our faculty and our staff, our families are safe. And so there's a lot of work with that. I'm very confident that from physical distancing to disinfecting and sanitizing and extra sinks and hand washes and all of those things, HBA is doing a great job with that. And then the third thing, which I believe is maybe as much as more important as others in aligning us with what God wants us to do, is to embrace change. And for those of us who have been around HBA for a long time, embracing change and at a pandemic and how we look into the future may not line up as much as we think it would. But I'm just so proud to say that everybody's embracing change. And during a time of pandemic where there's uncertainty, one thing that we know is that as we prepare for the opening, we're also taking this moment to dream about the future of the HBA, knowing that HBA is going to continue to be the school that God wants us to be. And He has been so faithful over the 71 years that we've been HBA, Hawaii Baptist Academy.
Right. Well, that's very exciting. And I know for sure the students, including my children, are very excited to come back. And I think they just miss that community, that sense of community that we have. So
we miss them too.
Yeah. So can I ask you, what is the message that you would like to just share with our alumni about HBA?
Sure.
If they haven't connected with us for a long time, or if they've been very engaged, what would you like to say to our alum?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Thanks, Billy, for allowing me to share this. Over the last several years, coming back to my alma mater, the one message that we've left with our younger alums is that, and our not so young ones too, is that no matter what your experience was at HBA over the years, we know that when we're at school, we all had different experiences. No matter what that experience is, you're welcome back to your alma mater. You're welcome back to HBA. So we want to encourage you that whether it's been a while or you've just graduated in 2020, that we welcome you back anytime to come and join us at your alma mater, whether it's a sporting event, a game in the gym, or an event for Alumni Week, things like that. Or as a parent, we encourage you to bring your children back to HBA. We welcome you back with open arms. We know that our vision for HBA in the future is that, and by listening to what's happening this week, I think it's apparent that Hawaii Baptist Academy might not always be a place that people think about leaders, but it is for me, right? For me, it was a special call to come back to HBA because I felt like God was asking me to be that bridge for our graduates, to know that HBA is the place that we cultivate and equip our students, our families, our faculty and staff through a Christian worldview to become leaders, not just leaders in our community, but leaders globally in our homes, in our future places of work, in our businesses, and in our churches as well. And so that is the vision and the dream of HBA. And this week, to me, is an example of that. Again, Billy, your vision, your leadership in pulling all of this together, And then taking a look into our community for people like Kurt Murao later today, and Susan Utsugi and others that are leaders in our community right now. They have all stepped up to the plate and said, hey, I want to help HBA to be known for a place that cultivated and equips leaders. So I'm so excited about that.
That's wonderful. Ron, can I ask if you can just pray over our alumni and Alumni Week?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for that. Father, we thank you so much. What an exciting week. We thank you for the opportunity that you give us to take a pause during this time of uncertainty, during this pandemic. And this pause helps us to realize how blessed HBA is, that your hand has been upon us for these past 71 years. Father, that not only us sitting here today, but you've always brought leaders in our community, from the McCormicks as they founded our school, to leaders like Colonel Sager and Dan Kong and Dick Bento. Father, thank you so much for bringing the Joyce Wongs and the Maureen Kings and the John and Diane Hams and others that we'll hear about. Once I start naming names, I know I'm leaving people out. But Father, this has been your school, and you've allowed us to be our school. And so, Father, I pray that you be with our young alumni, our elders, bring our community together in such a way, Lord, that we can bless you and honor you in all that we do here at HBA. So we pray that you go before us this week. Thank you for your love. We love you so much. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you again, Ron, for joining us this morning and really helping us to kick off this virtual Alumni Week. I'm wishing you and the class of 75 a happy reunion year, and hopefully we can have your class meet up in person real soon.
Yes, thank you so much. Have a great week.
Take care.
We came, I already had a contract with the HBA. And 3 days after we arrived from the Philippines, I was still jet lagged and everything. And I had to report to HBA to teach. So that's how we got here. When I first came, there were a lot of teachers who offered help to me and asked me if I needed anything. And that was really very nice for me to realize that there were people who were kind around me and who were also my professional equals. So one Halloween, I came to my room, I opened it, and there was this snake on my chair. And I picked it up and threw it in the trash can, and they were all disappointed that I didn't scream. And I said, next time, don't pick a science teacher to put reptiles or spiders. Try somebody else. And they were laughing. You know, as I look back from 1968 to the present, I can see God's blessing and God's hand in everything that happened at HBA, from the acquirement of the elementary campus to the middle school campus and the high school campus. God's hand was in it. And God used people. He moved people to help us financially as well as prayerfully.
Welcome everybody to our HBA Virtual Alumni Week, and we're so excited to have for our very first viral activity, Chef Brian Nagai with Foodland Farms. Thanks so much for being here, Brian.
Thank you, Billy.
So before we get started with the actual dish, let's just talk story, and I want to find out more about your Foodland story, because you have actually a really great one.
So Foodland story. So I've been with the company off and on for about going on 7 years. But the funny story is that when I was going to HBA way back when, my part-time job was actually at Foodland. So I used to work at School Street. So I would go to school, and after school I would go there. I worked from like 4 to, I think it was like 8 o'clock, and then one day on the weekend like that. So Actually, I've been, technically I've been at Foodland since I was 15.
Wow. Okay, and so tell us, what is your position at Foodland, and what new things are coming up for Foodland?
So I am the chef de cuisine for the Sullivan family of companies, also known as Foodland. So I'm the corporate chef de cuisine. So I oversee all the food operations in various locations. If you've been to our Alumni or Pearl City store, where they have the various food offerings, and then like Pearl City has the Pahana bar, Alumni has the Arfield wine bar, like that, all the food offerings there. So I'm in charge of doing the development, finding the chefs to run the facilities as well, coming up with new and trying to create new food dining experiences. Okay. And then as far as like what's coming up, well, I mean, if you haven't noticed, like, down in Kapolei and Kamakanali, like that, we have our new Kamakanali store, which is going to open up soon. I know we were supposed to open up last month, but unfortunately with things are going on right now like that, we had to take a little bit of a break, but then we're starting to gear up for that, so it will be soon.
Great, I'm looking forward to it. So what are we going to be preparing today?
Okay, so for today we're going to be doing a seared ahi power bowl. So it's summer, we've all been cooped up in quarantine, and and I think maybe we need to get a little bit more of a healthier, fresh, refreshing, food going on. So it's going to be fresh, locally caught ahi that we're going to sear, and then we're going to turn into a power bowl, which is going to have things like quinoa, some of our fresh local vegetables like kale, arugula, some radish, some fresh citrus in there as well. We're going to make a mac nut mint vinaigrette to go along with it, and it's going to be pretty good.
Great. And all of these ingredients we can find at Foodland?
Yes, all these ingredients you can find at Foodland. In fact, I got all of this from Foodland.
That's wonderful. All right, go ahead and get started.
All right, so first we're going to start off with our ahi. So this is fresh, locally grown, locally caught ahi. I have my pan on. I've had this pan on for a little bit because I want to get it hot, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to sear. Number one thing when we cook fish, especially because we want to keep this, I like it medium rare, especially ahi, because it's so fresh. What we want to do is we just want to get a nice hard crust on the outside, and then but still have it nice and soft, almost like like raw, like sashimi style on the inside. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So first thing we're gonna do is we always season, and I take a little bit of salt. Oh, it's windy. We want to do a little bit of seasoning with salt. Now this recipe is, the one thing I like about this recipe in general is just that there's not a whole lot of rules. Like I think like this recipe is very flexible. You don't have to it's not like, if you don't have this, we can't make the dish like that. You can do this we're doing it with ahi today. You can definitely do it with another type of fish if you wanted to. You don't necessarily even have to even cook this fish if you didn't want to. You could just do it raw and do it almost like a poke style.
Great.
As well. I'm gonna season it with this is togarashi, which is Japanese chili powder. And I just like it because I think it just gives a little bit of heat, and there's a little bit of nuttiness, because you see there's like different kinds of peppers. There's also seeds, like sesame seeds and black sesame seeds. But you can do it with, a lot of people have like their own little special pulehu spice, Hawaiian salt, or any kind of bag instant mix, seasoning mix. So this is just olive oil. I'm gonna put that in the pan. The idea of this, we want to make sure that our pan is nice and hot. So I'm going to keep this up to high. And what you want to do is always make sure that you'll know if your pan is hot. There's two. I'm just going to be kind of hard because we're outside, but again, so you want to see if there's smoke coming out, like that. Two, you can also look at the oil. When the oil is really hot, it's really loose, and it just moves around like water, like that. As opposed to like when it's actually still cold, it's a little more viscous. Right. It's a little slow moving, like that.
Okay. Oh, I'm learning something.
Do you cook at home?
I do, and especially during this time of quarantine and staying at home, we've been definitely experimenting with new dishes and actually teaching my daughters how to cook, and that's been fun.
Yeah, my daughters cook. My older daughter, she cooks. So Bailey, she likes to. She's very adventurous, and like she's very into Pinterest.
Oh.
Yeah. She won't learn from me, but she'll learn from Pinterest. Of course. Right?
Because
what do I know?
Yeah, exactly. You're just the professional, but that's okay. Right. Pinterest is the real deal.
I always say, like, I don't think Michael Phelps teaches his son how to swim.
Right.
Right? He probably has to go to some guy at the Y and listen to him, right? Okay, so we're gonna just put it in. And all we're trying to do is we're just trying to just sear both sides. So it's got a nice sizzle going. We're gonna cook it for about maybe about 1 to 2 minutes just to get it. We don't want to cook it all the way. You can cook it all the way if you're just not into raw fish as well. And this can be done with swordfish, opa, mahi, whatever's in. Obviously you're gonna have to cook those a little bit further. Like I said, this recipe can go any way you want. You don't even have to even do fish. We're doing fish here, but like I said, you can do chicken, beef. If you don't want a meat, then maybe you can do tofu as well.
Okay, great.
So what we're trying to just do is look for good color.
And what's a good color?
It's brown, but not black. That's what my chef used to tell me.
So, did you go to school for cooking?
Yes, I did. I went to KCC. KCC's coloring program. It's a 2-year program. That was back in, that was long. It was like almost 20 years, I think.
And you're a 1992 graduate
I am
from
a
HBA?
92 grad, yes.
Very good.
Shout out to 92.
Yay.
This is fun. I mean, we used to perform on stage together.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Back
in the day.
Back in the day.
Yes, long time ago.
Right.
So it's fun doing something a little different.
It is, right? I never
that's
thought
looking
this
really
is what
good.
I'd be doing though. Like to be honest, when I left HBA, I did not say, "Well, I'm going to be a chef."
What did you think you were going to do?
You know, I thought it'd be something. I was always creative, so I always thought it'd be something in the creative sense like that. And I was still looking. I was looking at like things like design, like graphic design, or like even like marketing and things like that.
Right.
And so I went to school, and then I just, it just didn't like seem to be like what I, it just didn't feel right. And cooking was just like a hobby I used to do in high school. So I'm gonna flip this over because I think the sear is just right, and I'll tell you what I mean by a nice color.
Oh wow.
So it's nice and brown. It's golden. It's not. You can still see on the sides that it's not cooked all the way. And then we're just gonna just do the same thing about 1-2 minutes on this side, and then we're gonna be done.
Okay, great.
Okay.
So who did your mom or your dad was the cook, or how did you learn it when you were growing up?
My grandparents, again, my grandfather owned a restaurant like way back, and so I think it probably came from there. My grandma used to always cook for us. My mom was a single mom, so so she worked a lot. So I was home a lot alone. So like I had to kind of learn how to cook just merely out of survival. But then it also was.
At least you didn't burn the house down.
Right, and like I couldn't eat cereal all day.
Right.
Even though like that's like my favorite thing now. But I felt like it was also a way of expressing creativity, and I thought it was a kind of a cool thing. My friends used to think, oh, that's cool that you could cook. So we used to cook for other people. I remember going to Tyler's house and cooking, and then I cooked chicken and I undercooked it and everybody got sick.
And you probably never made that mistake
No,
again.
never again. Like that. Okay, so we're good on both sides. So I'm gonna turn this off, and then I'm just gonna put this on the board right here. I'll put it in the middle. That off.
Okay.
And then we're pretty much done from here like that. So from here we will either we can just let it rest, or we can if we're ready to go, we can just serve it like that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna cut it up because we're gonna cut it into slices for or actually more like cubes.
Does it matter to the thickness of the fish?
Well, the thicker the fish, then obviously it's gonna take longer to cook. But then I prefer it to be thick just so that, because I know I want it raw. If it's like paper thin, then you really don't have this. By the time you get that nice sear that you want, it's pretty much gonna be cooked like that. And that's pretty much with everything, like with meats. Like if you want to make a steak like that, so you prefer to get, if you're trying to get some kind of temperature on the steak where you want it to be like either medium rare or medium or whatnot, you want to have it to where it's thicker, because then there's less room for error. Obviously, there's something that's too thick, because then like if your steak is like this thick, then you're probably looking at like an hour to cook, right? Like that. So, like I say about like a 3/4 to 3/4 of an inch, I think is like a good size like that for ahi. And it, and most well, anyway, at Foodland anyway, yeah, you can ask them to cut, you know, your meat or your fish a certain way if you want to. Like
Okay,
that.
great.
So I asked these guys to, you know, cut this up for me just to this specs. So we're just gonna cut them into just basically just simple cubes, and then we're gonna put this aside.
Well, it looks really good. I know one of the quarantine activities, like my husband has been doing, he's been doing a lot of diving.
Oh,
Free diving, spearfishing.
nice.
And I know some of his other friends are doing a lot of fishing. So
Yeah.
having fresh fish is
Yes.
such a nice benefit from that.
Yeah, my brother-in-law fishes, so, and he has a boat, so, and they've been, well, before, now they're going out more because they can't go out.
Right.
Like that. So we're done with the ahi part like that. So
Okay.
what we're gonna do is we'll clean this up and then we'll come back and then we'll get ready to do the rest of the par bowl.
Awesome. Okay, so we have seared our ahi. So what is next?
Okay, so now we're gonna make the vinaigrette, our mac nut vinaigrette for the par bowl.
Okay.
So I like this recipe. It's pretty easy. We're gonna take just some mac nuts.
And it can just be like dry roasted.
Dry roasted mac nuts, yes,
Okay.
like that. Chopped. If they're whole, you can chop them up, but I'm pretty sure you can find chopped ones probably easier. So we're just gonna do a little bit of that. We're gonna also add some vinegar. This is a red wine vinegar.
Okay.
You can use rice wine vinegar too. Like I said, this is like a really liberal type of recipe. Yeah. But you just want some kind of acid. So we're gonna add some red wine vinegar to this. Oops. That. We want to add a little bit of sweetness. I'm gonna use honey for this. You can
Okay.
also use agave
Oh,
if you're not really want to do honey.
sure.
That. And we just want to add a little bit of sweetness to that. We're gonna take one garlic, and then we're gonna just quickly just kind of slice it up.
Man, I wish I could cut like you. What's the most important way of holding a knife?
Always, let's see, what's a good way like that? Never cut like this.
Oh, always knuckles.
Like knuckles, like that. Because when you cut with your knuckles, your knuckle adds like a guard. The knives are curved at the end for that purpose, so that you can rock. So this is a natural motion like that. Some guys lift, and some things you have to lift and chop, but then like I feel like there's a lot of control you don't have with that. So like for me, it's always about picking a point, rocking, and then you just trying to like keep that point and keep on going across. like
Okay,
that.
great. Thanks for
Or
that.
just buy a chopper.
That's your safer bet if you're
Well,
scared of knives.
Yeah. Or if you're cutting like if you cut like
A lot.
1,000 of them, yes. like
Right.
that. So we're gonna, and then from here I'm just gonna mince it up real fine.
Okay.
So just about one. We're gonna put that in there.
Okay.
We're gonna add some fresh mint.
And you were telling us that this mint you've been growing. This is one of your quarantine projects.
This is my quarantine project. like that, yes, and like that. So it's amazing how like like what people like are learning how to do or have done. We're talking about so I've been trying to bake bread just like everybody else, and I've learned that I am not. That's why I'm not a baker, because it's really hard.
Right.
So for me, I'm very, very. I've always appreciated pastry and bakers, but even more so now because I know that it's hard.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, and it's just a lot. It's a whole different type of science and thought process that you need to do. It's a lot, it's so precise.
I was gonna say it's a lot of precision.
Yes.
My mother loves to bake, and she always says follow the recipe to the T the first time you do it, and then second time you can always make adjustments. But
so we're just taking about a few leaves of the mint, and we're gonna add some fresh mint to it. So this will add a little bit of like freshness to it. It'll brighten it up.
Okay.
Add that into there, and then we're gonna take. I'm gonna grab a lime.
And what are you doing there? with the lime?
Limes are really hard as opposed to lemons like that. So this is how like you kind of gonna get the insides kind of all soft and just ready so you can juice it.
Okay.
So you just push it against the table and then you just kind of roll it. And then basically you're trying to like just bruise and break up all the fibers that are inside. So from here, it should be pretty easy to cut and to squeeze out. And then I'll just grab like a spoon. Or if you have one of those, I don't know what they're called, but the little citrus
Yeah.
things. And then, so this will add another level of acidity, but also like a bright acidity to it. And then we're gonna go, we'll do 2 of them.
Okay.
And then
Oh,
Hawaiian chili pepper.
nice.
Right. So I had to get gloves. So you always want to try to work with gloves if you're gonna deal with chili pepper because depending on, well, I think for most of them, they're gonna be pretty hot,
Right.
and you want to make sure that you don't touch your eyes or anything because it will burn. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just slice this in half first, and I'm trying to just take out the seeds.
Are the seeds where the hotness too comes
Yes.
from?
Yes. The seeds and the ribs or the memory that are on the side, those are usually where all the hotness comes from. So what you want to do is just try to scrape all that off. Because chili pepper has actually really nice flavor. It has almost like a sweet. I mean, if you think of like a red bell pepper,
Okay, yeah.
it's sweet, right?
Right.
In essence, they're all kind of the same, but it's just that this one just has that level of heatness that adds to it, right? So, and we just want a little bit of it, so we're just gonna chop it really
Okay.
finely.
Now, is that another quarantine project? Is growing chili pepper?
No,
Making
actually-
chili pepper water?
I,
That's a local staple.
that is a local staple. Yeah, no, actually, I got this from a friend of mine. His house had some. Yeah, and he's actually a chef at one of our places, and like he tries to like kill me with all his hot food constantly. Which I like, but I guess because he's Thai, so his level of hot and not so hot
Is very different.
It's
I'm
extremely
sure
different, yeah.
from an average person.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, and then we're just gonna add a little bit of olive oil.
Okay.
And then all we're gonna do is just mix it. This is just a very loose vinaigrette. It's just acid, fat. There's a nuttiness from the roasted mac nuts. A little bit of heat. The mint will give it a little bit of freshness with the lime. It's almost like a mojito, I guess.
Wow.
Right.
So if it sits a little bit longer, does it bring out more flavor?
Yeah, right, exactly, right, yeah. So like, obviously if you let it sit for like a day, so you could make this
Sure.
a day ahead,
Uh-huh.
or you can make a big batch of it and then just leave it in the fridge.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Oh, that's
So
good.
we're done with that. So we're gonna put that on the side for now.
Okay.
And then let's start building our bowl. So, the essence of our power bowl, is gonna be greens and grains.
Okay.
So what I have is, this is quinoa, which is a grain. This one I did ahead of time, so we just boiled it, just
Okay.
salted water. I think it's probably like 15, 20 minutes of it, and just till it's tender. So it's almost like making pasta.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're just gonna add that into the bowl.
And quinoa has what kind of a taste or texture?
It's,
How would you
it's,
explain it?
It's like a soft seed. I feel it still has a pretty good bite to it. It's very neutral. It has a earthy kind of taste like that, but it gives, to me, I feel like it gives you that really kind of al dente type texture,
Okay.
without it being pasta
Gotcha.
like that. And then I'm gonna use my little garden here of vegetables, and then we're gonna just start doing some different vegetables inside of it. First of all, we'll do a little bit of red onion. You can use Maui onion if you like.
Okay.
I'll just use this for it. So red onions are, typically sweeter. They're more meant to be eaten raw. They're really good grilled, because they have but they're perfectly, I think some like the harsher white onions that are like, unless they're like Maui sweet.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So this one we're gonna do as, what we're gonna do, we're just gonna we call it julienne, which is just like this like thin strips.
Okay.
Because you want to have like, this will add sweetness. It has a little bit of that bite that onions will tend to give you, but it won't be so harsh.
Right. So tell us a little bit about your daughters too.
Okay, so my older daughter Bailey, she's gonna be a junior at Hawaii Baptist.
Great.
Yeah, so we're really excited about that.
Wow, pretty soon graduation.
I know, it's scary. It's really, really scary. We're gonna add some. This is arugula.
Okay.
Fresh arugula. Arugula is a peppery green, so it has that sort of those pepper notes to it. You can leave it whole. I like to just be able to, for like leafy greens like that, I like to just tear it instead of cutting it.
Okay.
When you cut, especially greens like that, that's when it starts to turn brown. When you're tearing leaves like lettuces, and this is for everything, like you can do it with your romaine lettuce or whatnot. When you're tearing it, it's actually separating naturally through wherever the natural separations are. So we're gonna add a little bit of arugula to that. And then this is Brussels sprouts, and which are like pretty much like baby cabbages.
Cabbages, right?
So and then we're just gonna. I like this to have a little bit of crunch. It's almost like slaw.
Oh yeah.
Right. So we're just gonna add a few of these inside.
See. Brussels sprouts gets a bad rap sometimes.
It does. You know, I think like we're close to the same age. So like we grew up. Brussels sprouts was like frozen or in a can.
Right.
Right? It was like, like a lot of vegetables, like asparagus, beets, like that. And then I think for the majority of us, or for me anyway, like that,
right.
The experience was always getting it frozen or in a can, which are like really awful.
Right.
But, I don't think I ever had my first fresh beet till I was probably in college, like in culinary school. And I realized like, wow, this is such an amazing vegetable.
Right.
Yeah. So we'll add a few more.
Okay. Great.
So as you can see, as we're building this bowl, that like there's a lot of textures. I want it. I feel like like crunch is really a big thing because we have we have kind of a soft texture with the fish.
Right.
Right. So we're gonna add that.
Okay.
And then we're gonna go with some kale. So this is a local kale. They grow this in Mao Farms down in the west side. Yeah. For these. The ribs are so like kale is a really cool vegetable because like you can eat it raw, you can eat it cooked, and it's really a very hearty vegetable that can withstand heat. So like you could grill it, you can braise it, stew it, whatnot like that. So for this one we're gonna do it raw, but because it's hearty, it is kind of rough as it's raw. So like for these kind of things, you want to also kind of cut it a little smaller and finer. Okay. And then this rib part in the middle is really hard unless you're gonna cook it. So. Usually what we'll do is we'll just take it off, and then you can just kind of just grab the stem and then just pull it off the ribs, just like that.
And for Foodland, do you folks partner a lot with local farmers?
Yes, we do. Mari's Gardens, Mao Farms, Whole Farms, we do our tomatoes from them, which we got today. Mao Farms was nice enough to provide a lot of the vegetables, the produce that we're doing. As much as possible, and we're always trying to like source locally. It's especially now, and it's there is an abundance of like great local products like that.
Right.
And it's just more getting it out there. And I think the thing that we don't it's small, the island's small, we don't have enough again. We actually the farms do actually have enough to provide for the majority of the island.
That's wonderful.
So again, we're just gonna cut this fine. Okay. It's almost like a slaw, like I guess if you had to kind of describe it to somebody. We're trying to build. Let's see, we got radishes. I just grabbed any kind of vegetables.
It looks good.
So these are.
It's very colorful.
So these are called icicle radishes. Normally radishes you see are like round like that, but these are icicle because they look like hanging like icicles. Yeah. So So these tops are really good too, like the radish tops, beet tops,
Yeah.
carrot tops like that. You could actually just saute in like salt, pepper.
Oh, no
and
kidding.
like that. And
So you could really use the whole
you
vegetable.
could, yes, you can. You can use almost the whole vegetable. Yeah. So this time I'm just gonna cut this little fine slices.
So Bailey too is on the golf team here at HBA.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, he is. So, which is, I mean, I played tennis and you obviously cheered. Did you play sports too?
Cheerleading is a sport.
I know it's a sport.
Come on.
I mean, other sports.
No, it was primarily cheerleading.
So, I mean,
That was a year-long sport.
it was. Yeah. So, I've always enjoyed, like the sports programs, especially here at HBA. They're very, they're supportive. Our golf team is amazing. They promote. The coaches are amazing. They promote teamwork. They have this attitude of where like we all come in together, we all go home together. Especially with golf, where it's a long sport. It's a 4-hour tournament.
Right.
And they literally will wait for each other because like they don't know when they're gonna go out. Like one guy can go out at 7, the other guy can go out at like 9. So you're looking at like a
Different
2-hour difference.
end times.
End time, right?
Yeah.
So they all just stay and they all hang out and they all wait for everybody.
That's great.
What's awesome is like, and I'm not, I don't know for sure, but it's just that I've noticed like that. Like they're the only, like I noticed like they always pray before they go out together. They all come together, they all pray, and then they all go and they wish each other good luck before they go out like that. So for me, like that's what I remember about sport programs here.
Sure. Yep.
And they're good.
That's right. They got God behind them. That's why.
I know. Like I always tease Bailey about like like when we go to the gym. I
Yeah.
was like, when we were in the gym like that, we had like 2 banners.
Yeah. Right.
And there's like 30 of them now. Right? So I think that's that's amazing. It's a testament to a lot of things that like we can be a competitive school. We can be this amazing school, but still have the same values that we've had, way before we were there.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's different, but it still feels the same.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. When I hear Bailey's, what she talks about when she goes to school and like the activities and what she's doing like that, it's the same things that we did. It's just in different perspectives, right?
Right.
The time is just different.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we got radishes in here. We're gonna add some edamame.
Okay.
Edamame adds a little bit of umami to that. Tomatoes, which
Yes, I know. If it's cut up.
so we're gonna cut them up. So these are whole farm tomatoes. These are really good. So these are grown locally.
I love the colors
Yes.
too, and just a different variation of what it looks like.
Right. Tomatoes have a really great sweetness and acidity. And I grew up not liking tomatoes, but I've learned over time the appreciation of like all the different vegetables that that we have. And,
Right.
It's really interesting. I guess because like I like everything. Like I find like when I'm getting older, like there's certain things I used to like that I don't like anymore.
Right.
And some things I never used to like, and now for some reason I like.
Love it.
Right.
Like avocado. That was me.
Oh really?
I never liked avocado when I was younger, and now I just love avocado.
All right, and then so we're gonna add a little something different. Oh, this is so these are pea shoots.
Oh, okay.
Pea sprouts. So this is what comes before they turn into peas.
Oh.
These are really good.
Wow. I never knew that.
Right. So these ones, again, I just like to, a lot of it I like to just tear. I think it's like, it's pretty simple. We can do that. I'm going to clean up a little bit over here. We're gonna add a little bit more of some acidity and sweetness. We're gonna add an orange.
Okay.
So this is like my one thing I learned. Well, this is like one of the cool things I always thought about was learning in culinary school. Was how
to cut an orange properly.
How to fillet an orange. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna.
Oh, very neat. I wish I could do that as easily with a pineapple.
What we're gonna do is So the oranges have segments, and then you're gonna cut in between the line like that.
Oh, very neat. Oh, now we can get fancy at home.
That's right. When I was going to culinary school, this was like, I thought this was like the coolest thing. Like this was.
I know how to fillet an orange.
I just thought like I thought like this was like the greatest thing ever invented. You know?
That is really cool.
Right. So I'm gonna add this in. And I like to add fruit to a lot of things. Just I feel like, you know, like everything needs a little bit of sweetness. That's not like sugar or always like honey kind of base kind of thing like that.
Right.
So like, and I feel like fruits is a really good way to do things. There's like I put like, and I like to try to sometimes use fruits in, you know, in different ways. Like we'll grill grapes and stuff like that.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
that's interesting.
I put it in a salad like that. You know, it takes on a whole different flavor profile.
Sure.
And you know, I'm just gonna just squeeze the juice in there. Why not? Because we already got the oranges.
Yeah.
Okay.
That looks really good.
Okay. All right. And let me see what's there. I believe. Yep. And that should be it.
Okay.
Yeah. So what we're gonna do is just gonna get a spoon and then we're just gonna toss this all up. So from here, you know, it's pretty much like a salad. Yeah. We could serve it in a bowl like this if you want to just, you know, do a large part of that, or we can do it as individual bowls like we're gonna do.
Okay. That's great. So what is your one like favorite memory of HBA?
What is my one favorite memory of HBA? Wow, that's a hard one.
You have so many, that's why, right?
I do.
Or like a memorable teacher, or
Mr. Goslin. I think. Yeah. I think he was very influential, you know, coming from, you know, like just a public school and going to HBA, and then, you know, and not being, you know, I mean, obviously not, you know, there was no you know, there was no Christian influence at a public school, obviously, like that. And
Sure.
coming to here, like that, it was pretty overwhelming, like that. But, you know, Mr. Goslin was really good about how to implement, you know, to kind of like implement God's word and God's teaching into just everyday thing without actually like doing it direct, you know, like directly.
Yeah.
It was very indirect about it.
right?
Yeah, and it seemed very natural.
That's wonderful.
Okay, so it looks like we got everything ready to go. So I don't know about you, but I am starving. So
Totally.
let's get this thing in a bowl so we can eat.
Yes.
Okay, so we're gonna start with our power bowl ingredients, which is our quinoa, onions, fresh tomatoes, kale. There's our herbs. Put all that in here. So let's get that nice and built up,
Oh, looks so pretty.
right? And then we're gonna add. I like to add some different textures. So this is sunflower seeds.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're gonna add a little bit of sunflower seeds to that. This is cool. So this is fresh. Not fresh. This is fried garlic. Yeah.
Garlic.
You can find this at Foodland or any of your Asian markets. They use it a lot in Asian cooking. And then, of course, we have our vinaigrette that we made, which is our olive oil, lime juice, fresh Hawaiian chili, fresh mint from my garden,
Great.
packed nuts.
That's awesome.
I gotta plug that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm very proud of that.
And we were talking some of those ingredients that you got, those dry ingredients. We have another HBA alum that works at Foodland too.
Yes, John Cotto. So John Cotto is one of our directors for our natural and gourmet sections.
Great.
So yes, so a lot of the things came from him. Thank you very much, John Cotto.
Yay.
That it's pretty cool because like I knew John Cotto from before. Actually, you know that John Cotto went to culinary school.
Yes, I
Yeah.
know.
We went to
He
culinary
used to
school.
we were his guinea pigs.
Oh, really?
Yes, he cooked for all of us.
So yeah, so we were in classes together
Oh, neat.
at KCC, and then and then we both graduated and we kind of went our separate ways. And then I found, and then I knew him because he was one of our vendors for Foodland. And then it's funny, just like a few months later, I get as we get new directors, there's always an announcement that goes through our corporate email. And then it said John Cotto is now the new director, blah, blah, blah. And then I find out that I was like, oh, like, wow, that's interesting. But then I didn't realize it was him until it's like a week later or something like that. And then he comes in. walking through it, it's him. So pretty cool.
What a small world.
Yeah. So we're gonna add, this is our ahi.
Okay.
Finish this up, our seared ahi that we did earlier.
That looks so delicious.
Right.
And then we were talking too about Bailey, your oldest daughter,
Mm-hmm.
and about golf.
Yes.
So as a parent, what has been your observation of her experience with golf? Being able to participate, or being I guess a student athlete, just like, and you were too, right? Like that. I think I think a lot of our experiences were similar. Where, I love how her golf team, they're very close. They focus on teamwork. They focus on encouraging each other. Right.
Their golf is a long sport. It's it's 4 hours, 4.5 hours, 5 hours long, right? But they all, they see each other off, and they wait for each other till everyone comes in. So nobody goes home until everybody's done. I think it's cool because I see every morning when they go for their tournaments like that, they all get together, they hold hands, they pray.
That's awesome.
And they share God's word, and be great examples of that you can be, and they're good, right?
Yeah.
So
Right.
too. I mean, they want a state championship last year. So so they can prove that you can spread and be good Christians, and we can still be a competitive school
Right.
that that goes up toe to toe against everybody else.
Yeah.
So I think for me that's the greatest thing. It's been transformational for her personally, for her game and her whole aspect. I think before HBA and going to team golf, golf is a very individual sport.
Right.
And I think that she plays her hardest and she plays for herself like that. But with the fact that now she wears that logo, that
Yeah.
HBA on her shirt or whatnot like that. I think that it adds a sense of pride and and a value. It makes her, I think, strive to be more, because she knows that she not only represents herself, now she represents a team and also a school.
Right. That's wonderful.
Yeah. Okay, so
let's finish this off.
all right. Okay, so I think we'll finish up with a little bit of maybe some green onions, just to, because I gotta show off a little bit, right?
Yeah, we gotta see the chopping skills.
Okay, right. So we're just gonna.
Don't try this at home if you're not properly trained.
So we're just gonna do that. Put a little bit on top, and I think we're done. So this is our seared fresh ahi quinoa and kale power bowl with our mac nut vinaigrette.
That's awesome. Brian, it's been a pleasure having you here. Thank you for coming back to HBA and being a part of our first ever virtual Alumni Week. I hope you folks learned a little something. I know I sure did, and that we can aspire to do some creative dishes during this time and especially over the summer. So thank you again so much for being here.
Thanks for inviting me. It's always fun to come back, and especially to do it with the fellow alumni, which is awesome. Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. And special thank you to Foodland Farms, who has helped to sponsor this segment. We're so appreciative of their support, especially of their alumni. Thank you for joining us today for our first ever virtual Alumni Week. We hope you enjoyed catching up with HBA legend, Miss Maureen King. And I don't know about you, but I was drooling over that Ono Ahi Power Bowl prepared by 92 alum Chef Brian Nagai. We'll post the recipe on our website. Special mahalo to Foodland Farms for sponsoring the segment and for donating the $100 gift card that we'll be giving away on tomorrow's show. As for today, you have until 10 p.m. Hawaii Standard Time to be one of 10 people to receive a free alumni shirt. Just email us at alumni@hba.net and let us know your name, graduation year, t-shirt size, mailing address, and what you've been up to lately. We'll post the winners on our website at hba.net and on our Instagram and Facebook accounts at HBA Alumni. These past few months have been challenging for everyone as we have all been adjusting to a new norm. Recognizing a need to help HBA families who have been hardest hit by COVID-19, we started an Eagles Kukua Fund to provide additional tuition assistance, making a Christian college preparatory education one that is a reality. Acts 4:32 says, All the believers were united in heart and mind, and they shared everything that they had. We are all in this together, and while some of us have been struggling, others have been able to help even more. Please consider making a gift to help these families in need so that their children can thrive in a loving learning environment that will prepare them for life beyond HBA. Giving is easy and secure online at hba.net. Thank you for being a blessing to others. Stay tuned for our Alumni Leadership Webinar Series starting at 10 a.m. Hawaii Standard Time, featuring distinguished alumni recipient Kurt Murao from the class of 1987. He's the Executive Vice President, General Counsel, Chief Administrative Officer, and Corporate Secretary for Hawaiian Electric Industries, and Scott Sue, President and Chief Executive Officer of Hawaiian Electric Company. We have a fun week planned for you. See you tomorrow.
Good morning and welcome to HBA's first Alumni Leadership Series. Thanks to all of you for tuning in and via YouTube and Facebook Live. We are thrilled to start off our leadership series with two special guests. My name is Jennifer Oyer, and I am a graduate from the class of 1997. And our two special guests today are Kurt Murao from the class of 1987, who is also one of our distinguished alumni recipients in 2019. And we are joined also by Scott Sue, who graduated from Kamehameha School's class of 1983. Kurt is the Executive Vice President, General Counsel, Chief Administrative Officer, and Corporate Secretary for Hawaiian Electric Industries. And Scott is the President and CEO of Hawaiian Electric Company. We invite you to go to hba.net/alumni to view their bios. But welcome, Kurt and Scott. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Jennifer. Glad to be here.
Good morning, Jennifer.
So we're gonna kick off our leadership series talking specifically about the topic of leadership. And really, I couldn't think of anyone two more appropriate people to be talking about this topic, especially with what's been going on in our world and in our community. So I wanted to, this is really just an opportunity for us to kind of talk story and for our alums to hear from key community leaders like the two of you. So I wanted to kick off our series talking about leadership. And Scott, I'm going to ask you first, what does leadership mean to you?
Well, thanks for that question. You know, I would probably simplify, I'm going to give a real simple response to that. And I would say leadership can be summed up pretty well by it's to organize and harmonize to achieve a purpose. And when I think about those three key words, organize, harmonize, and purpose, you lead to achieve something that is needed for your community, for your company, for your organization, for your family, whatever it is. And it's important that that's what's driving you to do this, right? It's not about yourself, it's to achieve a purpose for a broader group or a broader community. And then the words organize and harmonize are very important, because to me, organize means you actually have to be the one to be, stepping forward to getting things, put together so that you can move forward. And then of course the word harmonize, you're never going to be able to get everything running smoothly, or there's going to be 1,000 different opinions. There will be folks outside of your organization that you have to understand what their interests are, and bringing all of that together, right? That to me is going to be, that's the secret sauce, so to speak, right? You can organize your own shop pretty well, but to harmonize it with what others outside your shop are doing to achieve that purpose, that's going to be the art of leadership. So I've got a lot more thoughts in there, but maybe I'll stop and let Kurt comment.
Okay, Kurt, how about you?
Well,
what does leadership mean to you?
It's a very good question, and well, first I'll start by saying that I do believe leadership is something that you can learn. I do think it's something that you also continue to work on, indefinitely. I know I'm still working on it every day, and it's not easy all the time, right? So articulating a specific definition is very difficult to do. I know Scott did a great job, but it's not an easy thing to articulate. So I think I'll just say a few things of what I think it's about and what maybe it's not about. And in my view, I think leadership is really about others. It's really not about you as the leader. It's really about supporting, guiding, and empowering others to flourish. I see it that way. I've heard it said that leadership is not necessarily about being in charge, but rather having people in your charge. And so I think it's really not about just having, a position of authority. It's not about flexing your authority just to get people to do stuff. I think it's rather creating an environment where your people will give you their very best, because they know you got their back, right? So, and I strongly believe that. I think anyone can be a leader, throughout an organization, wherever you are in the organization. I think you can be a leader. For example, I'll think about some employee. When I see an employee that is always taking the initiative to help another employee or support another employee, so that employee can succeed, or when there's a new person that comes into the company and this person reaches out and welcomes them and helps that person learn and succeed in the new organization. In my mind, I think to myself, I see a leader there. That person is a leader to me. So, I mean, that's kind of how I look at it. And are you creating an environment where folks are flourishing, and then tying into what Scott said, actually getting things done, right? There's a mission, there's something to get done, but they're doing it because they want to, right? And because they know that, management folks, they got their back. That's kind of how I see it. Like Scott said, there's a lot you can talk about, but I'll try to keep it relatively short.
Maybe if I could respond to what Kurt just said. Yeah, the looking out for the folks, your people, so to speak, or even just, the folks side by side with you, right? To me, that's also a critical element, because, how many of us have had those experiences where your leader has really created a safe environment for you to do your job? Or if you are running into a problem and you consult with your leader and they say, all right, hey, I can either help you directly, or I can give you guidance on how to, deal with the hurdle, getting support from others. And probably the right answer is a bit of both, right? So those folks who are always able to, what they're doing is they're looking out for their people. At the same time, they're not necessarily just jumping in and doing the work of their people, right? Because part of being a leader is to develop and support and nurture. I thought, that's a really good point, Kurt.
Yeah.
That's great. So what do you think what do you believe are qualities of a community leader or a good leader?
Kurt, you want to go first?
Sure. Well, I think this question is more about a community leader. Is that right, Jennifer?
We're looking at any kind of leadership qualities. What do you think are?
Yeah. Well, so I think, launching off of kind of what I said earlier, I really think you need to be a caring person. You have to have empathy. You have to care about people. It's really hard, I think, to lead people if you don't really care about them, right? So if you're only caring about yourself, things tend not to work out well. Folks may do something, just because you have maybe authority, but you're going to create an environment where it's not going to be a flourishing environment, and folks may leave, right? They don't want to, they don't want that kind of environment to work in. So I think that you have to work, and you can work on this, by the way. You can work on that. You have to have humility, I think, is important. Being willing to listen, I think listening to people, understanding, you know, where they're coming from, what their concerns are, what they worry about, what their hopes are, understanding people. Of course, that helps you to know them more personally, and helps you to, of course, care about people. You care about people that you know, right? You know them better. You understand where they're coming from. It's much easier to care about people that way. So a good listener, being very humble. What you're really saying is, I don't know everything. I don't have your experiences. I haven't had your experiences. So tell me and teach me. You know, tell me what you know. Help me learn, basically. I think that's very important. You know, in the community, especially in the broader community, you have so diverse, right? In terms of, you have different cultures, different races, religious beliefs. You know, if you're going to be a community leader, you really got to understand the community. You got to listen to people that have views that are very different than yours, and learn. And I think that showing respect to people that way is important. And I think the last one would be integrity. I think it's very important. You know, you do what you say you're going to do. You know, people can count on you when you commit. You got to kind of build up your, you know, your street cred in the community to be a leader in the community. So I think those are my 3 important ones.
That's great. Scott, how about you?
See, the danger of going second after Kurt is Kurt always the best, the juiciest tidbits. You know, so when I think about when I was growing up, right, as a young kid, it was definitely being more just, you know, as you are, you think more about yourself, you think about your friends, and then as you move on from lower school and then you go away to college, okay, now you're starting to think about career. But and it's still thinking about me. Okay, what is my job? What's my career look like going forward? Now, some people at that point are already thinking, I want to go back to my community and serve, right? Those are the folks that are, you know, a step ahead. You know, when I came back to Hawaii, it was still about, okay, can I find a good job? I want to do something for the environment, just because that was one of my interests. But yet, as you then start to build a family, as you really start to put down roots, or if your family is already here in Hawaii, now you start to think about, okay, what type of environment do I want for my kids? Or how can my company be successful, you know, coexisting, if not, you know, being partnered with others in this community? And that's when the word community really starts to take shape for folks, right? Okay, we are part of something way bigger than us, something way bigger than our company, our organizations. And for us to actually see a future that we can all thrive, okay, I have to actually put my mindset towards being a part of a community. And that is probably the most important thing that we all have to evolve to and really get a strong sense of in order to become a community leader. So Kurt sort of hit it on the head, which is you have to understand your community. You have to understand what it means to be a part of that community. And it is bigger than you. It is about building relationships. It's about knowing others and putting your own on the side and really understanding what are we as a community hoping to achieve, and then participating in that to move everybody forward. So that's going to be probably the most important quality of a community leader is like Kurt said, the empathy, being willing to listen, and then very importantly, to be able to stand up as part of the community and bring others with you together. So yeah, it's really learning about what it means to be a community member. That's probably the most important thing.
The both of you brought up one of my favorite words, empathy. And I think, you know, a leader, especially during this time when things are so chaotic and new, and you know, for people working from home, and you know, you folks would know this, Scott, you would know this, with 1,000 of your employees working from home, you know, having that sense of empathy, especially for the parents that are having to watch their kids and work, I think having that sense of empathy is so important as a leader. And, knowing your community, I think that would lead me to my next question of what do you think are specific things that people can do to learn about and integrate into the community, especially if maybe they're new to Hawaii, or maybe they've been away in the mainland, working on the mainland, and want to come back home. What do you think some of those specific things are that they can do to integrate and learn about the community and being a leader in the community? Scott, I'll start with you.
Yeah, let me answer by sharing how we as a company, right, we've been trying to move forward with renewable energy for the last decade. And one of the things I always remember was we work with a lot of other outside companies, folks who build solar farms and such. And one of the things that we always will take early on is we want people, especially or organizations, companies coming from outside of Hawaii, we want them to understand what it means to do business here in Hawaii and what's expected of them to become a part of the community. So a lot of the messages we give to these outside companies are probably similar to what I would suggest for anybody coming, to Hawaii, even on a personal basis. And the first thing is that to understand that, like any place, even though we have 1 million+ people here in Hawaii, certainly on Oahu, this is a community. And when you come in here, it's really understanding that, for you to be successful, it's not just, again, going back to our other conversation, it's not just about, hey, can you get a good job? Can you set up shop? Can you have a nice house to live in? Send your kids to a good school? And then, hey, that's it, right? We want to, as much as possible, encourage people to come in here, but then to contribute to the broader community, to contribute to the broader good, to get to know others in the community, and to establish relationships. I spent time, going away to college, working on the mainland, and I'll say that I probably never, well, other than at college, but afterwards when I was working, I never really took the time to get to know my neighbors. And perhaps my mentality was that, well, I'm only going to be here for a short amount of time, so why bother? But when I look back on those, even though I was there for a few years, my existence was very much go to work, go eat out, come back home, or whatever it was. And I never took the time or effort to get to know others in the community. And I probably didn't contribute much to that community. I can say that. So to me, it's all about really understanding that, hey, if you're going to be someplace, why not learn what it means to be a part of that community, contribute, get to know others. And, there's no black and white cookbook for everybody. Not everybody is going to want to volunteer, or they're not necessarily going to have time to do that. But you can start with the real basic steps of really trying to understand what others are trying to accomplish and just getting to know other people in that community. That's the first step.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Kurt, how about you?
Yeah, it's always hard to be the second person speaking here, because Scott hit all of those things. But I think, if I just had to think of one thing that's really important, many of you probably heard of the civil rights attorney, Brian Stevenson. He wrote the book called Just Mercy, and there was a movie that came out actually called Just Mercy. But I remember listening to him speak once, and he said, get proximate. I didn't even know what he meant when he said that, but he said, get proximate with people who are suffering, or people who are in different situations that you're in. And what he's really trying to say is, get closer to the people in your community. I think we tend to sometimes stay in our own circles, or we tend to hang out with people that are similar to us in our community. We create our own little niche, and stay there, you know, even to the, you know, maybe you have your church community and you have your family, and then your sort of circle of friends that you kind of stay with. But I think if you really are going to become a community leader, you gotta you gotta build the relationships in the community, and you also gotta truly care about the people that are in the community. I mean, a community is really made up of people, right? Community is a community of people. So you got to know the people. You got to care about the people, and you got to care about the community that you're in, right? You care about Hawaii. You care about the future of Hawaii. Care about the people of Hawaii. But that only happens, I think, when you do get proximate. You do get closer to people. You break out of your sort of small circle and explore people that you normally maybe wouldn't hang out with normally, and see that there are people living all different ways of life, and people have different opinions, people have different views, and they're all they all deserve the respect and dignity as everybody else. And so until that happens, I think it's difficult to be a great community leader. I'm still working on that myself. I mean, I'm giving you my thoughts, but I'm not saying that I'm a great community leader myself. I'm just saying that that's what I think I need to do if I want to get more involved in the community.
Yeah, those are great pieces of advice. I'll never forget, I was at a networking event for the Chamber of Commerce, and Gabe Lee was there, and he's the master networker, right? And a young professional came by and introduced himself and started selling Gabe on his product. And Gabe was like, whoa, you must be from the mainland. That's not how we do business here. How's about, let's sit down for coffee and let me get to know you a little bit more. And I just thought that was such a great, he was so gracious, but what he said was, let me get to know you a little bit more, not so much about what your company, but who you are, right, and what you're doing here. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, Jennifer, if I could just add to what you just said, right? Difference between building a human relationship first, and really that's the foundation of how we would interact going forward, versus just plying straight into transactional.
Mm-hmm.
That's where, inside our company, I often will try and tell people, I tend to use the word community way more than I use the word customer. Because to me, customer is almost, that's by definition, a transactional relationship that I have with another person. I am the supplier, they are my customer. Versus if I am a community member, we are fellow community members, the three of us. Technically, you folks are also both my customers, but to me, the community relationship, the relationship that we have on a human level is really the place to really focus on. Because what I always will say is, if we have a strong relationship on a human level, that I know you well enough to say that, I trust them, they're good people, right? It makes the transactional stuff easy.
Mm-hmm.
Plow straight in and I say, Jennifer, have I got a great product that I want to sell you, right? Oh, okay, you don't even know me, for one. What's my agenda? Is he just does he really care about me, or does all he care about is selling another widget? So yeah, the relationship part is what has to come first.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I love about Hawaii too, right? Of course, one of the first questions is, what school did you go to? But that's the way of getting to know someone, right?
Yeah, and I do appreciate HBA, all of you alums inviting me to be part of this discussion.
We'll consider you an honorary alum.
Thank you.
So, there's a lot of young professionals, young alumni that are tuning in, and we just had a really great class graduating last week, Saturday. How can young leaders meaningfully and effectively serve in their community? Kurt, I'll start with you.
Okay. Well, I think it sounds a little cliche to say it, but really it is about just getting involved, right? You have to start getting involved at some point. stepping up. When I think about young people, and I think, you're the young people now. So you have the voice of the young people. You should speak out for the young people now. I mean, because I can speak for myself that, in a very short time, you will no longer be the young people anymore. I looked in the mirror this morning and it confirmed that I'm no longer young. So I don't have that kind of, I can't necessarily, I can advocate for a young person now, but I can't really speak for them now. And so I say, if you're a young person now, make your voices heard. Now you're part of the community now. You have your views, you have your thoughts, you have your hopes and dreams, you have all kinds of things to add, valuable insights. I say, speak out, get involved, go to a community neighborhood meeting, speak out, get involved. Other ways you can always serve your community, of course, is volunteer. When you're young, maybe you're not in your full-time job yet. You don't have maybe as much money to donate, but maybe you have some time that you can donate, and get involved. I think, there's a lot of, as you know, and Jennifer knows, or Scott knows, there's a lot of nonprofits with good people that are making meaningful impact on the current community here. And certainly happy to have volunteers come and support their network and their organizations. So, I would say get involved in that, and you may find some people that can be a mentor to you as well. So that's always an added benefit. You build your social networks, and I think if you start now, as you grow older, you will have that. What Scott was talking about is you'll have a community or civic-minded approach to life, even if you start earlier. I was kind of like Scott, and I was very thinking about myself. I for a long time, right? Just what do I need to do to be successful, or to do those things? And it's not until later on in my life that I thought more about the community. So I'm trying to instill that to my kids too now, and because kids, as you know, you don't have to teach anyone to think about themselves, right? That's like natural. Right? I mean, before anything, there's mine is like the first thing they'll say. Trying to get them, even my words to them, like, and trying to encourage them are just kind of words. It's only in their head. But if they get out and they actually see people, they see needs out there, they see how they can help, how they can contribute, and they actually do some action, that's going to grow their heart, and that's going to get them to be more civic-minded, not just me telling them stuff. So I would say for the young people, get out there, speak out, and get involved, volunteer if you can.
Mm-hmm. I think Hiko does such an amazing job cultivating young leaders within your organization, and I know a lot of people that work there that are my age and younger that are sitting on boards, nonprofit, community boards. So Scott, can you talk a little bit about how young leaders can effectively serve in their community?
Certainly. Yeah, I'm really lucky to be having worked at Hawaiian Electric for all these years. As for obvious reasons, right? We are a big company and we build big things, and not everybody always appreciates having a pole in front of their house or a power plant nearby or what have you. But something I think that the company has always recognized over the years is that, we exist, not just to produce and sell electricity to everybody. We have to recognize that we are, again, broader community. And, to the extent that we have almost 2,700 employees across the islands that we serve. So basically all the islands except Kauai. And we have resources. We have people who have time and are willing to give to the community and serve in leadership roles. What better opportunity do we have as a company to try and assist and create a network, a framework to allow our young leaders to go out there and volunteer, whether it's a short-term volunteer project, organize something, and you can recruit volunteer your fellow employees, or if you want to go all the way to serving on a board of a nonprofit agency, right? We will support that as well. And our support will come about in terms of allowing people to use their time to spend that volunteer work. In some activities that are that Hawaiian Lecture actually will step up and sponsor, we will actually provide some materials, food, use of a company van to shuttle volunteers, right? So we have a full array of these different types of opportunities. And one thing I'm always looking out for is, where will our next leaders be coming from? You know, who is it that's going to be sitting in my seat, 10 years from now? I will say that one of the first experiences I had at the company was being asked to help coordinate a beach cleanup. I'm part of the environmental department way back when, and my boss said, "Scott, can you organize this?" And I said, "Okay, what does that mean?" So it gave me the opportunity to meet so many different people across the company. Of course, it was something that I enjoyed because it was a beach cleanup. We could, go in the water as well. But I still remember riding out to the beach that morning, and one of the vice presidents of the company was in the van. He had volunteered. And he looked at me and he said, "You know what? This is exactly what we're trying to get as many people in the company to do. Because you will learn so much about what it means to serve. You will learn so much about what it means to organize. And that's going to take you far." And he said that generically. He didn't know me better than anybody else, I think. But it still sticks with me that this is a great opportunity to learn. It's also a great opportunity for the company to identify who could be possible up and coming leaders of the organization. So something we strongly support.
That's great. Kurt, what about you?
Well, I thought I was the first person to answer this
Oh,
one.
sorry. Okay. Digging a little deeper, I always ask this question to leaders that I come into contact with. What keeps you up at night, and what are you doing to solve it? So, Kurt, I'll start with you.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Well, I mean, right now, my kids literally are keeping me up at night. Their schedules are so off right now, but there's, as everyone knows, there's so much going on right now. With nationally, globally with the pandemic, and as well as, the race relations in the country. There's so many things going on, and then there's work matters that we're dealing with, family matters, the economy. So there's many to choose from, in a way. But I think, if there's one thing that kind of concerns me right now at this moment, is I think the level of divisiveness in our country. That it seems that it's going too far, and it worries me when I think about the future of our country. For my kids and for all of us, because and I'm not I don't want to get political or anything. Whichever side you're on, there just seems to be an unwillingness to really listen to the other side and find common ground. I feel like that if you just have a different view with someone else, it's almost like people take it as fighting words almost already, just because you disagree or you have a different view. And so that really concerns me. I feel like there's a rising level of even almost a level of hate that's out there, and I mean that's a huge issue. And I know thinking about what can I do about it. I mean, I guess I can just focus on what I can do, and I think I think it goes back to what I've touched on before is you treat everybody with the dignity and respect that they deserve as a person, right? I mean, you're not going to agree with everybody, but regardless of anyone's views, treat them with that kind of dignity. Listen, and what does that mean? What does that look like? I think really listen to them. Try to listen to why they have their views. I mean, you still might not agree at the end of the day, but I think trying to find some kind of common ground is not only possible, because I do think that we are more similar than we are different at the end of the day. And so, you know, being willing to listen, treating people with respect, and even the, you know, folks that sometimes, at least from your point of view, seems very difficult to do. You know, I think that, you know, taking the higher ground and being willing to listen and find that common ground is going to be important. And because I'm concerned. I mean, that is something that does bother me right now for our country. You know, even just thinking about, you know, my kids, maybe they'll go to the mainland and live. I mean, there just seems to be a lot of that divisiveness is rising to a level where it's starting to get a little scary for me. So that does keep me up at night. I have to say that does, it bothers me down deep.
I think you bring up such a great point, though, about, you know, with all of this divisiveness going on, but just taking the time to listen to other people's opinions. I think that's one of the worst things about social media is that, you know, people make all these comments, but you don't really understand like where they're coming from. And I think one of the best things that has come out of this pandemic is the use of, you know, actually picking up the phone and what this is actually made for, and like calling someone and talking to them and really asking, what did you mean by that? Or, you know, because email and all of that is so hard to, you know, determine what the tone is. So taking the time to listen. Scott, what about you? What keeps you up at night, and what are you doing to solve it?
Yeah, I'll build on what Kurt just said, you know, and it does relate back to our earlier discussion about the importance of community. You know, again, it's that feeling that you are connected to others as part of something bigger, right? Your community. If that is weak, then people will tend to just get back to thinking, you know, about themselves primarily. Or if there's an issue, well, what's in it for me? Right? If it doesn't benefit me, well, why should I support it? Okay, the more that people start to just think about themselves, or even, you know, isolationism, right? Then it will become easier for us to have those divides will appear. And it's, you know, with technology, it's too easy for us to throw out a bombshell. Oh, I don't, you know, I disagree with you, or I'll call somebody a bad name. And again, it's because we have, you know, we have weakened that fabric that, you know, normally binds us all together. So yeah, I agree with you, Kurt. To me, that's where we have to stop that. We have to arrest it. And, you know, I think people will always benefit from having diverse opinions and backgrounds, right? We all grew up here in Hawaii, and, you know, we have so many different, you know, people out there. Folks have just come to Hawaii. Folks have been here for multiple generations. At Kamehameha, of course, we have ancestors that date back to whatever, the 1500s, I think 1200s maybe. So all different types, right? And I think that's what we have to get back to celebrating. I think in our busy society, right, it's become so easy for people to just get into their patterns of life, which is, all right, I have to get this done, that done, and that done, right? Before COVID, all of us were sort of, especially think about weekends, busy weekends, getting kids to sports events or attending a meeting or so on. Everything becomes so much focused on a sort of like a structure that you build, which whatever builds, whatever makes sense for you or your family. And it doesn't necessarily allow yourself, unless you really consciously participate in community. If you participate in your church or your company volunteerism, right? There's opportunities for that, but life gets so busy sometimes that we often don't do that enough. And it makes it easier for us to just focus again, mostly on ourselves, or the little, maybe the immediate group that we normally, you know, associate with. And that also, all that leads to promoting divisiveness and just a failure to really empathize with the other person.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you, Kurt. That's also what I'm most concerned about.
What gets you up in the morning, and how do you, talking about leadership, how do you folks engage and excite your team? How do you create that harmony within your team? What gets you folks excited? Kurt, I'll start with you.
Kurt, you go first.
Well, in terms of what gets me up in the morning, I try very hard to not take my life for granted. You hear it before, count your blessings. I wake up and I try to remind myself that every day is a gift. You don't know when your time will come to leave this life here on earth. But I do know that every morning I get up is one day closer to that date, right? So, I don't waste my days, right? I tell myself, don't waste my days. But do I wake up pumped up every day with the right perspective? Of course not. I'm like everybody else, your mind gets clouded with all kinds of things, and you don't always, you have to work on getting a good perspective. So I try to find the right perspective every morning, which usually ends up with my feeling like I have a deep sense of gratitude. And if I can have that kind of perspective, it's much easier for me to have more of a servant's heart, and to think about others before myself. And I think that in a way supports my team when I'm thinking about them more than me. Just in terms, I'll say a few words about just, being inspiring or inspiration. I don't think it's, there's a time and place for it, but I don't think it's always about coming up with something clever and inspirational to say, or all the time. I think it's more about just really being inspired yourself in what you do and in your life. And I think that inspiration is contagious. If you're inspired, people will pick up on that. And I think that Scott's good at that. I watch him, and he's a very inspired leader. So I think that people pick up on that. It's contagious. You got to be careful, because if you're uninspired, that's contagious too, right? So you have to, I think inspiration is something that you work on yourself first. You inspire yourself first. You be inspired first, and I think that will rub off on your team. I'll stop there and let Scott, our CEO, speak.
Kurt, thanks. Thank you. I really think it's about what you think about is your purpose. And when you look forward to that future. So as much as Kurt and I just talked about what concerns us, I can guarantee you that both Kurt and I have nothing but optimism that we as a broader community will not only survive the current downturn economy and COVID-19 and all the pressures and things that we just talked about, that we will actually get through that and come out of this as a much stronger and I would say even a more inspired community. Mm-hmm. The reason I say that is because I'm an optimist. We'll always say the glass is 75% full. And the reason I think that way is because there are enough people in our community, and I know that there are enough organizations out there that truly believe that we're all working towards improving our broader community and getting everybody to come along and make everybody's lives better. Now, it's not easy. There's 100 challenges, but you make progress every day. And now when I think about, okay, when I come to work, did I get enough sleep the last night? If I got 7 hours, that's great. If I got 4 or 5 hours, okay, it's a little bit tougher to pick up. But nonetheless, you come in and you say, you know what are we going to achieve today? Even if it's a small step forward, it's that small step on that pathway. So I think it's always going to be helping people see that there is that pathway forward. And even if it's a small step that we achieve right now, a small step forward. You know, a long time ago, I remember I was hiking up a trail to the ridge with my one of my daughters, and she must have been about maybe 12 years old at the time. And I just remember she was just getting so tired and a little bit cranky. And I just remember, you know, as we took a break, you know, we could look up and we could see the top of the ridge. And I said, you know what? I think you know the ridge is there. You know the end goal is there. But what's bogging you down right now is you're just like worried about, will I ever be able to make it all the way there? I said, you know what? Don't worry about that ridge line. Don't worry about the top of the ridge just now. But just look down, look ahead of you, the 10 feet, and just keep focused on that. And that's what we did. And sooner or later, we were up at the top of the ridge, right? And so it's knowing that the goal and it's achievable, but at the same time, just focusing on what's ahead of you and continuing to make that progress. So I think that that's my general approach. You can't leap tall buildings in the very first day, but you can definitely position yourself to get stronger so you can do that.
Mm-hmm. That's a great story. Yeah, definitely. And I think, Kurt, going back to you, I think you bring up a really great reminder for me about surrounding yourself with people who are inspiring and who are smarter than you so that you can continue to, feed off of them and learn from them. I think that's really important.
Yeah, agreed.
I am certain that you folks have learned so much, especially within these past few months with this pandemic going on. What are some of the things that you're going to be doing differently as a leader post-COVID-19? Scott, I'll start with you.
Two thoughts. On a very sort of a tactical basis, remote working is going to become more a part of how we do business. I think it's just proven itself that, for certain types of work, you can do it effectively working remotely. And, it's something that we, turned the clock back 6 months. I don't know that any of us would have thought we would be able to do that. The second thought I had is that it is really underscored how, as a business, we have to look to both sides of us and think about the broader needs of the community in a more holistic manner. Now, when we're thinking about the projects that we're working on, whether it is solar farm development or what have you, we are so mindful that if we can keep that momentum going, then that means the potential for job creation here in Hawaii. It also means, of course, bringing the cost of electricity down and using less oil, right? So we've always had those particular goals on our minds, but job creation is now even more important. So yeah, I think it's just being more mindful of how as we do our business, how we can make such an impact in other areas of the community, and having the ability to push ourselves to step beyond our normal boundaries. I think that's going to be really, really important going forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Kurt, what about you? What are you going to be doing differently as a leader?
So I think that one of the things that, I think I've always, always thought about it this way, but since we went through a sort of a public health crisis, and it's still going through it for that matter, it really reminded me of how important our employees are, right? The safety of our employees, ensuring that we do everything we can to keep them safe, and ensuring that we do everything we can to make them to perform their work, if it's at home, that they have what they need to do with their jobs at home. But it really put, I guess, not that employees weren't important to me, but it really put the importance of putting employees first as in a very, it reminded me of that pretty strongly. So that's one thing, because I think, you know, things can, another thing is flexibility, right? Adaptability, you know, things change on a dime. I mean, as we've noticed with this pandemic, and, you know, you have to make decisions with uncertainty, right? You don't know how things are going to actually turn out. You make a decision. I think as you know, as a leader, you have to be humble enough to change course if it wasn't the right decision, right? Or if you make a decision and things change, and, you know, don't be so stubborn and say, I made a decision, this is what we're going to do, you know, but say, hey, look, we got to change. That's not working, or it's not working. We got to do something different. And so I think, you know, as a leader, it's remembering to be continuously humble, that you know, when things happen, you don't know how things are going to be. There is uncertainty. You may have to change. Another thing quickly is candor. I think the transparency with employees is very important. Even if you don't know the full plan, or it's not finalized yet, at least communicate that you're working on it. This is what we're doing. This is what we're thinking about. I think employees want to have that communication open. They want to know what's going on. Having that sort of being kept in the dark, or having uncertainty, creates even more anxiety during anxious times already. So I think candor is another thing. Always, you know, being transparent. And the third is the hard one. Really, is how do you be better prepared for the unexpected, right? How do you be more resilient? How do you create or forward think in such a way that you can be better prepared for something that we don't know is going to really come? Those are the challenges I think that all leaders will have to think about. I know, you know, boards of directors are thinking about that. How are you thinking about the next few years when we don't know really what's going to happen? So having to think sort of out of the box, learning see what other people are doing, you know, I think is going to be very important, because the uncertainty is still here, and we don't know how the economy, you know, is going to shape up, how quickly things will change. Will it get worse? Will it get better? No one really knows fully. So I think, you know, we got to be better prepared at being prepared for the unexpected, I suppose, is the way of saying it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's all I got.
That's one of the kind of cool things that I've seen, especially in the nonprofit community. Well, for-profit and nonprofit community, you mentioned the word resilient, and it's been so neat to see so many nonprofits really stepping up and being innovative during this time to continue raising funds for their mission, but also being creative in partnering with for-profit organizations and creating that public-private partnership in order to be sustainable and move forward. So resiliency has been really inspiring during these past few months. We're actually going to be opening it up to questions. If you folks don't mind, we left some time at the end. And we do have a few questions that have come in from our viewers. One of them is actually my mom, who says hi to the both of you. And she asked Kurt if, okay, this is small community, right? She's like, is Kurt's dad Kenneth Murao?
So Kenneth Murao is my uncle. So Kenneth Murao is my dad's brother. My dad's name is Bert. So yeah, Kenneth Murao. How does your mom know Kenneth Murao?
They were classmates at Farrington.
Okay.
Yeah, and they have the same birthday.
Okay. Yeah.
And Scott,
I am related to him
from church.
Okay.
What's that?
My mom, John and Karen Pape are my parents, and my mom said hi because she worked in church.
What a small world, yeah.
Okay, another question that came in is, what are some of the, oh, this is a great question. Okay, who do you folks look up to as mentors or inspirational leaders? Kurt, I'll start with you.
Well, I'll have to say that, I mentioned earlier, I mean, in terms of getting inspired, I did mention earlier that the gentleman gentleman named Brian Stevenson. I'll say that you know, I mean, there have been many people along the way. I'm only mentioning him now because he's someone I've been thinking about recently, and he's someone that I think has, if you hear him speak and you think about the things he's done, I mean, he in getting folks off of death row that were innocent, you know, and the amount of work he's put into that kind of work, you know, that kind of, you know, this guy was a Harvard law educated guy who could have done anything, right? And he moved to Montgomery, Alabama, to dedicate his life to this mission that he has of serving people who really didn't have any advocates for them. That kind of spirit, that kind of love and care for people is really inspiring to me. And you know, if I could have some more of that in my life, this is what I shoot for, you know. So I'm just throwing out one. And the reason I'm throwing him out is because you know, I know other people can go and read his book, and I know other people can go and hear his story. You know, so I encourage you to do that. I think his spirit is something that's worth looking at and being inspired by.
Great, thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. And Scott, how about you? Insert some leader.
Yeah. So one of the people that I always have admired, at least in certain portions of his career, was Dwight Eisenhower, and you know, it's a little odd, people might say. But, so growing up, I was sort of a World War II history buff. What I still remember is, you know, and some of you, this actually recently came to light, where at the time that the United States was going to invade Normandy, which was of course being planned by General Eisenhower, he wrote a letter. He actually scrawled out his, you know, just a few sentences that what would happen if the invasion failed. And he just wrote a very few sentences, which basically was intended to be read to the people of America, saying, you know, all of the soldiers and sailors and airmen fought valiantly. And if there's anybody who should be blamed for the failure, it is me. It is mine, you know, my responsibility alone. All right. So that was one thing that I remember from reading about him. You know, taking responsibility, no matter how, you know, bad things went. But then later on, you know, he wrote some papers called the Eisenhower Diaries, and it was a story about how in the early 1950s. He was being encouraged to put his name in as a presidential candidate. And initially he declined, he refused, because he said, it's something that I've never aspired to. And frankly, the office of the President of the United States is a role that nobody should ever aspire to. Really, it should be where if a person is the right person for that job, then it's his or her duty to serve. But it shouldn't be something that person decides, right? And so that's why he was initially resistant, but then eventually, of course, he became a candidate, became president, and so on. So I always thought, to me, you know, that really meant a lot to me, which is, you know, really recognizing a sense of duty and what it means to serve. And you're not in it for yourself, but again, to serve a higher purpose, or to help a broader community move forward towards that higher purpose. So there's a couple of lessons from Eisenhower. He was not a perfect guy by any means, but at least those two stories are what inspired me.
Great, thanks for sharing that. Let's see, another question. We have just one more minute. Quick question, what is a book, or is there a book that you folks are reading right now? I know Steve Jobs reads about 30 books a month. He tries to read 30 books a month. Is there a book that you folks are reading right now?
I'll speak. So, go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, so a book that I recently read was an old book from the 1940s called Man's Search for Meaning. And it was written by Frankl. And my daughter, who's she just finished her first year in college and she's taking some psych classes. She actually gave it to me for Christmas. And Man's Search for Meaning. Wow, this is a pretty deep book. Okay, I didn't pick it up until more recently. But really, what it is this is a Holocaust survivor. He had been in one of the internment camps, and he was a psychologist. And bottom line is how we respond to bad situations is something within our control, right? It's the attitude that we have about, what are we working towards? It's about, if you have that strong sense of direction and purpose, then that will help you through the darkest times in your life. So that's something that I was really inspired by.
Right now, I am reading Talking to Strangers by Malcolm Gladwell. One of my good buddies just recommended it to me, so I picked it up, and I have read a few of his books. So, but that's interesting. He sent it to me in light of kind of what's going on now. It's going back to the vicious of our country, and how sometimes it's more difficult than we think, or we think we're better at understanding and talking to strangers than we really are. I mean, that's kind of what it's about. But that's you asked me what I'm reading now. That's what I'm reading now.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for spending an hour with us. The time went by super fast.
Yes.
But we really couldn't have or wanted to have spent our first day of our alumni leadership series with anyone else. So thank you guys so much for spending the time with us, talking to us about leadership. It's been super inspiring. And for those of you who did miss it, we will be airing this again because we did record it. So you folks can tune in. But again, thank you guys so much for your time. And I should have mentioned too, thank you to Hawaiian Electric, because HECO has been a strong supporter of HBA since 1973, which was really great to hear. So thank you for the support community, right? HBA wouldn't be here without supporters. So thanks to HECO, Hawaiian Electric. I also wanted to share that for those of you who are still tuned in, we are having 3 really great alums tomorrow talking about service to the community, and we'll be joined by Judge Todd Edens from the class of 1982, Judge Karen Nakasone from the class of 1987.
87.
And Courtney Glazanaso from the class of 1989. And again, they'll be talking about service to the community. Thanks again to you guys. We really appreciate your time, and we will see all of our alums tomorrow. Have a great day.
Go HBA.
They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. Teach us, Lord, to wait. They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. Teach us, Lord, to